Guys, we just hit 300 on these boys right here. 100-mile reviews are cute, but how about a 301-mile review? Adidas Boston 12, baby, let's go. All right, guys, another beautiful gray rainy day here in North Carolina. But you know what? April showers bring May flowers. I don't know what March showers bring. Maybe March showers are going to bring big April marathon PRs for us all, because we put in the work in the winter, right? You listen to Griselda all winter, so when the Future and the Metro Boomin album comes out in the spring, you're going to be rocking and cruising. So today, man, we've been getting a lot of miles in some other great marathon training shoes. But it's time to revisit an old friend, an old favorite here on the channel, the Adidas Boston 12. Now, this guy is one of my favorite all-time running shoes. I can just say that. Everything about this shoe makes it a perfect marathon training shoe. The amount of cushion you get, how this foam feels for long runs, and then how it activates for short and fast efforts. And then, of course, what we got on the bottom here, this Adidas Continental Rubber outsole. So I've been seeing a few more 100-mile reviews going up. I got to give the people a 300-mile review. So that's what we're going to do today and tomorrow. Get this guy up to 300. I think it's sitting at about, let's fire up the Strava here real quick. I think the phone was dead. Something happened. But I'll show you the Strava in a sec. But wow, the rain is really coming down now. I got to step in real quick. Oh man, yeah, it is actually pouring out here now. But I want to get this guy up to 300 today and tomorrow. So we had a little bit of an embargo snafu where I didn't realize the embargo was in 4 a.m. this morning. So that means I doubled up on the videos today and yesterday. So that means I have 2 days to get 23 miles on this. I usually would be able to do a 23 mile double day and just do it in one day. But we're in the sharpening season of marathon training, which means the mileage is coming down. The intensity is staying the same. And the goal is to have those legs feeling fresh on race day. So the reason I'm excited that it's so rainy out here today is so we can test the Adidas Boston 12, see how this rubber's holding up after 300 miles, and reacquaint ourselves with one of the shoes that got us to this point in the block. This is one of the guys I was putting 18, 20-mile long runs on late last year, early this year. And we've been steady with the 22. So that's the goal for today. See how this thing is holding up after 300 miles. And also compare it to some of the new shoes we've gotten in the office recently. And let's take a trip inside. All right. Boom. And boom. So here we go. Superblast and on Cloudmonster Hyper. I've done a lot of comparisons with the Boston 12. Where is this guy? Yeah, I've done a lot of comparisons with this guy since I got it. I think I got this in November or December, but not with these two shoes. So Superblast is one that came into my rotation a few weeks ago. Like the Boston 12, it took some time for this to break in and soften up. It's got a little bit more of a cushioned and relaxed feeling than the Boston 12, and I know a lot of you guys like this for marathon pace and faster running. But with the amount of stack it has, it's a comfort cruiser, which I cannot say about the Boston 12. It's a comfort cruiser with speed capability. And then the on Cloudmonster Hyper, this one is going to be going head to head with the Superblast in that $200 training shoe market. Of course, this one's got a little bit more swag. It's got a little bit more of that on flash, but you do see that thick slab. And I've never seen anything that looks more like a slab in my life than this PIBA up in the front. So thick slab of PIBA here. And then you got this EVA carrier. They're calling it the Cloud Tech. Of course, that's the traditional on way that they set up these foam pods out in the back. This is an awesome ride. I really liked it yesterday. You got some nice stability back here for some smushing down without feeling too wobbly. And then it rolls you right along to the front and pops you off. So I'm hoping we can get some more miles in this later in the spring, summer. This is going to be a great long run shoe. I already know it because I did 90 minutes in it yesterday and felt like I wanted to just keep going and going. So these two are newer ones that have come into the office recently that I don't think the Superblast is not going to dethrone the Boston 12, but this potentially is going to be a strong contender for dethroning the Boston 12, or at least rivaling it, maybe getting that number 2 spot for best marathon speed training shoe. It's got stability, it's got speed, it's got comfort. The upper fits fantastic. And so throughout this video today, we'll do some comparisons with the Boston 12. But it is time to get out there now in that super rainy day. Actually, before we go, let's do a little bit of a an overview of the Boston 12 here before I get it completely wet and destroyed. But while we have it in the office, so top layer is this Light Strike Pro. This is Adidas's racing foam. Bottom layer is Light Strike. This is the EVA base. It's going to be a little bit more stable. And then let's take a look at the outsole, because this is the secret special sauce of the Boston 12. Continental rubber, tire rubber, very grippy, up there for tied with Puma, in my opinion, for the best running shoe rubber. And then the key thing though is out here on the back, it is rare for me to see a shoe at 300 miles or 280 miles without the rubber being worn through to the foam, because I scuff pretty hard. So not only is the stickiness awesome, and we'll test if the stickiness is still awesome because of the weather today, but you're also getting really good durability out here. So that's the secret sauce. And then you have these glass fiber energy rods. So this is Adidas's version of a plate that are a little bit snappier. And one thing I noticed, and let me, hold on. Yeah, one thing I noticed with this recently was that it seemed like it was maybe feeling a little bit bendier. When I bend it with my hands, maybe it's broken in more. This EVA is definitely softened up. And the other thing is I did a run comparison yesterday with this and the Cloudmonster Hyper. It was just a short little jog down the street. But the Cloudmonster Hyper, it felt, and this is really stiff from the EVA on the bottom here, but this felt just a little bit more cushioned, like it was giving me more pop. So it felt like it was protecting me more, and like I was getting a little bit more bounce. And I don't know if that's just straight up the foam in here is bouncier, or if because this is near 300 miles, we're starting to feel a little bit of that mileage wear and tear on this guy. So after the run today and tomorrow, we'll see how this midsole is holding up. And then upper here, you get a nice wider fit in the upper, which is nice. This was similar to the On Cloudmonster Hyper here. Both of these have decently wide, roomy toe boxes. And then the lacing system, and this is probably the weakness of the shoe, is the forefoot is great. It's just the lacing system is a little odd, and then the way that it locks down. And then out here in the back, you get a really loose fitting. It's not a great upper in the back, so you got to work with the laces a little bit to get the right lockdown. So, I mean, almost 300 miles, and I've survived with the upper, but definitely not the comfiest, coziest, most coddled feel in the upper. It's one that you got to work with. And I've been saying this in recent videos, maybe I should get a sponsorship deal with them, but the Features padded socks, the Achilles or the no-show socks, they have a little padding out here in the back. I'll show you, I'll see if I can find them and put them on before this run. They solve almost all of my heel rubbing or upper lockdown issues, because they just give you a little bit more substance between your foot and the upper that creates a little bit better fit. So that's my suggestion if you have an issue with this upper. And then look at this. Ever since I can remember, I've been popping my collar. Yeah, you got a little collar pop tab back here. So that's a quick overview of the Boston 12. What matters though is how it rides. So we're going to take it out in the pouring rain. Let's do it, baby. Let's go. All right, guys. So before we go here, look at this. Adidas Boston 12 mileage, 277 miles. So we got to get 23 across 2 days. Like I said, I would love to just bang out a 23-mile double, but I'm trying to be a little bit more conservative this week and next week. So let's get, 12 today, 11 tomorrow. Let's do it, baby. All right, guys. So plan this morning is 12 miles. Probably take it nice and easy. Just time on feet. Maybe progress it if I'm feeling it, but I've done a lot of good workouts. I've banked a ton of fitness during this block. So we are now in the phase of just maintaining all that fitness that we've built, and not necessarily trying to gain any more fitness, because last 2-3 weeks of before a race, especially a marathon, not really going to make any big breakthroughs, but you can do some damage. So that's actually something I've been fighting with a little bit, looking at some elite marathoner plans. I'm nowhere near elite, but just the mileage that some of these guys are hitting, peaking at 130, 140. I peaked at 120, and just wondering if I'm backing off the mileage too much. I think I'm probably going to hit 70 or 80 this week, which is going to be about 80% of my peak. So I don't know. Before I did that 255 marathon during training, I didn't really taper or sharpen. I didn't taper at all in the days leading up to it. I think I took maybe one day off and then did a lighter run. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm trying to go by the book a little bit here, because everything I've done during training has been
not by the book. And this the few weeks leading up to the race are always just the hardest for me, but we'll make it work either way. Now, Boston 12s are laced up. Take a look at this. Let's get some better lighting for you. Take a look at this. This is what I was talking about, these features socks. They have padding right here on the Achilles. So if you experience rubbing in any shoes, this usually can help a little bit. And now, look at the fit of the Boston 12. Man, almost 300 miles, and the fit is still absolutely atrocious with the heel out here in the back. This is probably the weakest point of the shoe. Let's see if it's on both sides. Yeah, it's on both sides. It's just really sloppy lockdown out here in the back. But ever since I can remember, I've been popping my color. All right, 12 miles, nice and smooth. If we want to pick up the pace, we can. Let's do it.
All right, guys, let's see what we got. 12 miles, 7:04 pace, 1 hour, 24 minutes, and 47 seconds. I was moving pretty good. That's a little faster than my normal aerobic pace. These gave me some pep. And with the rain, it's a natural cooling agent. I think it adds 10 seconds per mile. But yeah, it was pouring. I had to pop off my shirt and throw it here because I felt like I was going to get pneumonia if I kept it on. Well, I threw it down in the grass and then I brought it up. And then I had to run and take these off on camera because I had to run inside so I didn't have an emergency because I didn't have my shirt on, so I didn't go to my normal gas station emergency pit stop. But Boston 12, man, outsole still as good as ever. And I think we're going to need to bring the Puma DV8 Nitro 2 out to do a little bit of a comparison, outsole comparison with these guys. But yeah, this is still a fun shoe. It might be losing maybe 5 to 6% of that pop, but it's still cranking along pretty nicely. All right, lunchtime, baby. Let's go. Man, I was telling you guys about the weird smell in the first run review of the On Cloudmonster Hyper. I just walked into my office here, and the whole thing smells like I just painted it or something. These things have a really odd vinyl-y smell to them. I don't know exactly what it is, but it is strange. All right, guys, so it is 7:40 p.m. and I'm going absolutely crazy. I think I might have to do a double tomorrow comparing some of these shoes. Maybe we'll have to compare the Cloudmonster Hyper and the Superblast. But Boston 12 is drying out there. We're going to get some more miles in it tomorrow. But yeah, man, this sharpening phase is a little bit hard, but try not to get too many miles this week. So I'll see you guys in the morning for another run in the Boston 12. All right, morning, guys. We got an early morning. We are going to take the Boston 12 to the gym here to finish off this 300 miles on the treadmill. Let's do it. Always like to say stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So we got all the pre-gym stuff waiting, ready to go. We ran these in the rain yesterday. Let's check. Still pretty wet. Guys, I have not woken up at 5 in a few weeks, and you can probably tell from my lack of talking hair. I am tired. I don't know why, but it's been a struggle for me to wake up early recently. I think I'm trying to bank some sleep, catch up on some sleep, and I'm sleep deprived. So, plan this morning, 11 to 12 miles on the treadmill here. Nice and smooth.
Might pick up the pace. Might just cruise. But want to get these up to 300 and then do a little comparison to some of the other plated trainers and let you know whether this is still the GOAT. Is the Boston 12 still the greatest marathon training shoe of all time? That's not what I'm going to title the video. The video is going to be 300-mile review. Or maybe 301-mile review if we do 12 miles. That would be fun, huh? Alright, let's do it.
I got 7 miles in, quick bathroom break. Man, these things are as smooth as ever. They're feeling nice and soft on the treadmill. Light Strike Pro still got a little bit of that bounce to it. Man, Boston 12, GOAT. Absolute GOAT. Man, we've been in the gym so long by ourselves that the lights cut off. They just popped back on when I came off the treadmill, but man. A little hard to get some momentum this morning, but we are done. Man, this treadmill, for some reason, would only pause for 30 seconds. The one I normally use down there, and somebody else was using it when I walked in, pauses for 5 minutes. So if I step off to get water or use the bathroom or fix anything, I would only get 30 seconds to come back on this. And in that time, it would usually be on, and I had to restart the mileage each time. So one of the reasons I like the treadmill is I can just completely zone out and not think about anything. But a little choppy this morning. Anyway, guys, we just hit 300 on these boys right here. 100-mile reviews are cute, but how about a 301-mile review? Adidas Boston 12, baby, let's go. Yo, they're playing some funky jams in here this morning. Actually, let's see how much we got on this. And by the way, I had to crank this thing down super tight to try to get a good heart rate reading, because the past few runs it's been telling me my heart rate's 175. Some of you guys are telling me that's cadence lock, but I did a normal aerobic run yesterday, and it's telling me I basically ran a half marathon all out. So today, recalibrate. That's pretty close, 11.7. So we got 12. And we got 12 today, 12 yesterday, so that's 301, baby, 301. Exactly. I don't know why I keep saying exactly, because it's not. 7:57 pace, 1 hour, 35 minutes, 25 seconds. And let's see, heart rate today. Average heart rate 127. That one is for the heart rate watchers. All right, so taking these Boston 12s off, and so the reason there's a few reasons I wanted to come back to these. One is because I don't like saying something is my favorite and hyping all these shoes up unless I've gotten miles in it recently. So with the number of new shoes that are coming in here, I like to revisit some of these old favorites to make sure that they're still at the top. And we'll get into whether or not this is still at the top. But the performance is still there. I think, yeah, I mean, if you look at this, it seems like it's losing a little bit of that support, which made it a nice shoe. So not necessarily bottoming out, but you can definitely feel that there's some wear on this foam. So I think for this guy, the sweet spot's probably 50 to 250 miles. Now, if I didn't have some other shoes to test, and if I were on a strict shoe budget, I could probably take this to 400 miles, 450 maybe even, but I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily going to retire it, but it's not feeling as fresh. It's not leaving my legs feeling as fresh as when, for example, I run in the Superblast or the Cloudmonster Hyper. So that is something to know. I'm feeling a little bit more sore today from that 12-mile run yesterday than I would normally. But the other thing is, man, I'm in the sharpening phase. I'm really trying to not use the T word. There's a few words that I've banned from the channel. Some of you guys might know them. the S asterisk PER trainer. That phrase, he gone. I might have to ban the E word, EMB asterisk RGO. And I might have to ban the T word, T asterisk PER. But we're in the sharpening phase right now. And so yesterday with the 12 miles we ran in this, I don't know if I get really in my head when the mileage comes down. But this morning, this thing felt nice. It was more of a recovery / aerobic run. I did some pace pickup here and there, nothing too crazy. And this shoe didn't feel like it was trying to get me to run too fast, which is the issue sometimes with some of these plated or speed training marathon shoes. And this guy felt comfortable, man. And I think I was saying it might have lost a little bit of that supportive feeling, but it definitely feels better at 300 miles than it did at 0 to 10 miles. So this is a shoe that's going to get better with time, not like a fine wine, but like your aerobic base. The more you run in it, the better it gets. And so, yeah, it's definitely not retirement territory, but I think it might be into daily trainer territory versus if I want maximum performance reaching for this guy. But let's take a look at the outsole wear here. So this is the left side where the wear is usually a little bit more. Yeah, and you can see we've rubbed a little bit just in the middle back here, but this is in really good shape. Forefoot looks brand new at 300 miles. And then I think this back part here probably had the same texture as this. And that's really the only thing that's gone, is the back has been worn smooth here. Let's take a look at the right shoe. Same thing, we've worn the back smooth. This guy doesn't have as much wear into the foam. And it's also interesting they do this little cutout here in the back. I think it's supposed to work for supinators. So if you land on, I don't know, man. If you land one of these ways, it's supposed to keep your legs straight. One of you guys will know what I'm talking about. I'm going to drop it down. What is this little thing supposed to do? I'm not a doctor of running. I just got the miles in. And yeah, to the touch, this Light Strike Pro feels super soft. When we get back to the office later, I'll do a little comparison with the Takumi Sen 10 and the Adios Pro 3 to see. And maybe we'll even pull the durometer out to see if it's softened up a little bit. But this feels that it's softened up a ton. And if you look at the upper, man, so I know a lot of folks had an issue with the upper, that the fit is a little bit weird, and we talked about that yesterday. But if you look at this upper, it is in such good shape. This looks like a brand new shoe. If you didn't know this was a 300-mile review, the only thing I'd be able to tell you this had 300 miles on it is the creasing on the EVA. And so the downside of this shoe being on the more affordable end of the plated training shoe spectrum, or the speed training marathon spectrum, is $160, right? Cloudmonster Hyper, that's now the most expensive at $220. Superblast, $200, and then Saucony Endorphin Speed, $170. SC Trainer V2, $180. So this is on the bottom end. Oh, that scared me. That was a radio DJ. I thought it was the ops coming in here. But the downside is the EVA, right? You're not going to get 100% PIBA or 100% Light Strike Pro for $160. I don't mind the EVA, and it's softened up and it adds more stability out in the back. But the other downside is this upper. If they were to sell this shoe for $200, they would have to improve the upper. Upping the price is a forcing function of making everything feel dialed in. You can't sell a $200 shoe with a bad upper. Bro, what about the Saucony Wave 7000? That had a bad upper and was $210. All right, there's probably some shoes with $200 that have bad uppers, but for the most part, these brands that are selling shoes $200, especially training shoes $180 plus, aren't going to have terrible uppers. So if you guys want them to fix the upper, I'm guessing they would jack up the price on this a little bit. I'm hoping that's not the case. It shouldn't be too expensive to make sure that you get some padding and a better lockdown here. But then the other thing is weight, right? This is already a heavy shoe. This is on the heavier side of this speed training, marathon training spectrum. And if you add a more padded upper with a better fit, more structure, lockdown, that's going to bump this probably above 10 ounces in my size. So we'll do a little weigh-in later. So I have to remember the things I've got to do. I'm committing to them on camera. Hold me accountable. Weigh-in, foam, softness comparison, maybe a grip test. We'll see. We'll see if we got the grip test done. If not, we'll do it in another video. But yeah, upper. The thing with the upper is there's no real issues for me. This morning, for example, cruising 90 minutes, 95 minutes to be exact, and I had no issues with it feeling like it was slipping or sliding anywhere. So it's a little bit of a weird thing to get used to, but with some time, with some more miles, this is a shoe that will become one of your favorites if you give it the time to do that. And I'll talk about that later. All right, we got to get home. I got to hang out with Reevesy Boy this morning. It is, I think I'm late. Let's see. Yeah, it's 7:23. That's not great. Look at this. I had to crank down the coils so hard it damaged me. All right, we got to get home. So these Croft Pacer, by the way, have become my new everyday shoe. And these things are pretty sweet because they kind of look like Clark's boots. They look like Clark's Chukkas, but they're more comfortable. All right, shoes going back in the magic bag. More Hobby Jogger hats coming soon, I promise. So guys, I didn't realize this last time, but it looks like deadlifts are allowed now. And they've changed the rules to please do not drop the weights. So they figured out the root cause of the issue. The root cause was not the deadlifts, it was the dropping of the weights. Good job, Snot Fitness. Oh man, they're bumping Thriller in here now. I don't want to get it on tape for you guys though, because then I'll get copyright struck by the Michael Jackson estate. Thriller! Alright guys, it is turning to another beautiful day, so I don't know if we're going to get any outsole wet weather grip test today. We'll see. I think I might have something if we have time. I got something up my sleeve for that, but I'll see you all in a little bit. We're going to crank some tunes. Alright guys, just finished up lunch. We are back in the office. Now I want to do a quick weight comparison with the Boston 12 and some of the other plated trainers, and also do a little ride comparison too. So Boston 12 is coming in at 274 about. Let's check the other one. 270.5. All right, let's check the SC Trainer V2. This guy's 290. And now speed for, this is a light boy, 255. So lining these up now by weight, 250, 270, 290. These are probably the three kings. You can't have three kings. These are the three top dogs in the plated training shoe market. And I've tested almost every plated trainer, I think, other than the Hoka Mach X at this point, and also the non-plated ones that compete here, like the Superblast and the Cloudmonster Hyper. And I think these two guys are probably still my favorites, and this guy is just hyper popular, so it's going to be in here no matter what. So Boston 12 out of these three, this is going to have, for me, it had the best performance for fast running, and I'm 6'2", 160 pounds. And the Saucony Endorphin, both the Speed 3 and the Speed 4, just didn't have the support and the structure that I liked, especially in the forefoot. It felt a little bit mushy when I tried to go fast. I did not get that at all out of the Boston 12, but interestingly, as we're at 300 miles, I wouldn't call this thing mushy, but it is feeling like it's losing maybe just a tiny bit of that bite, and it's not as poppy and aggressive as it once was. And so one of the other things I wanted to look at is, if you take a look at this guy here, the Adidas Adios Pro, this Light Strike Pro in here, this is the marathon racing version. This feels a lot firmer to the touch. Just look at me pushing it in, and then look at me push this guy in. You can see I can get a lot deeper. So one of the things I was interested in doing as we're chatting through the Boston 12 against the competitors here was also doing a quick durometer test to see how much this Light Strike Pro has softened up, if at all. So this measures firmness of foam, and the firmest foams that I've tested with this guy usually low 50s, and then softest is low 30s. So let's see where 300 mile Light Strike Pro clocks in. All right, 38.5 in the forefoot. I like to try to get it's hard, we can't get a bottom reading because this is Light Strike, but let's see if I can get a reading on the inside here. Let's zero it out. All right, so 43. Let's see if I can get one more reading in the back. And it's the needle is what is measuring it. So it might have a little bit of Light Strike on the edges here, but I'll make sure that the needle is right in the Light Strike Pro. That's coming in at 45. All right, so let's just do one more just to be sure. Again, we're getting 38 in the forefoot there. All right, so around 38 to 45. Let's call it average of 42. Let's see if the brand new Light Strike Pro is any different. I'm telling you guys, this felt a lot firmer out there. Yeah, 47.5 in the forefoot here. 48.5 in the heel. And we should be able to get a bottom reading here. 45.5. The bottom foam is almost always softer. I don't know why. But yeah, you can see that the Lightstrike Pro in the Adios Pro, whether that's because it's brand new or maybe this is tuned a little bit firmer. I don't think they've tuned it firmer, but I think we've seen the Lightstrike Pro and the Boston 12 soften up a little bit, as I mentioned. So I think that's going to be the key thing at 300 miles. The shoe is way softer than out of the box and not as soft as the Fuel Cell here. This is probably the softest shoe out there, or the softest running foam out there, but a little bit more forgiving. And so as you put more miles into the Boston 12, it gets a little bit more smooth and buttery, which is a good thing for the most part. But I think the one area where maybe a little bit of downside is in high-end speed performance. So as we get more miles on the shoe, you might want to switch to using a carbon-plated racing shoe for your faster workouts or a different plated training shoe. But there's still tons of life left in this guy for everyday miles. And like I was saying earlier, I don't mind the break-in required on a shoe like this because when you're forced to run through 50, 60 miles to get the most benefit out of a shoe, for me, it almost mirrors the process of increasing fitness and getting better at running in general. It can't just happen overnight. So poetry or not, this is a fun shoe that gets a little bit better once you get a few dozen miles on it. All right, now to close it out here, I want to end with two more comparisons for the Boston 12. Now, neither of these shoes that we have here, and this is the Hoka Mach 6 and the Asics Superblast, neither of these necessarily go head-to-head with the Boston 12. This guy's $140. There's no plate. It's not Hoka's speed training distance shoe. It's more of a lightweight, actually a little bit confused with what exactly Hoka's intending for this shoe, but it's not to go head-to-head with the Boston 12. It's more to go head-to-head with shoes like the Rebel V4, maybe even the Nova Blast, and the Hoka shoe that would go against this is the Mach X, and the Adidas shoe that would go against the Mach 6 would be the upcoming Adi Zero SL, which Adidas is refusing to give me any information about, but is likely going to be coming out later this year. And now Asics Superblast, this guy is $200, and it does go against the Boston 12 in spirit, the way a lot of runners use both these shoes, long runs, speed workouts, but the plated training shoe that would be more of the direct on paper competitor to the Boston 12 from Asics would be the Magic Speed 3. And I forgot to mention that earlier. That's the other plated training shoe that I have not tested. So Mach X, Magic Speed 3 are the last ones. Let's get some more light up in here. So the main reason I wanted to bring these two out is because I know the Boston 12 is a little bit of a controversial shoe, and some runners love it, some hate it, especially for heel strikers. And I'm more of a heel landing runner myself, but this shoe doesn't work for a lot of heel strikers, especially if you can't get past that 50-mile mark, because there is a little bit of a firmer foam here, and you're going to get the most benefit out of the shoe for speed running if you're landing up in the forefoot. And then similarly, I think you got to put some weight and force down into the shoe. So I know some lighter runners, especially if you're not running super fast, don't love this shoe. So these two here are a little bit more crowd-pleasing options. Now, starting with, and interesting that I say crowd-pleasing because Superblast actually, a lot of people love it, but few don't love it. Like me, I don't absolutely love it. I like it, I don't love it. But let's start with the Mach 6 here. So the foam in this guy reminds me a lot of the Lightstrike Pro. It's bouncy. It feels really similar to the Touch. It's a different compound. So this is the supercritical EVA versus the TPEE in here. But this gives you a similar bounce, and you don't have to be running super fast to get the benefit out of the shoe. Now, a reason why it's a good alternative to the Boston 12 is because you get 100% of the supercritical EVA, so there's no firmer feeling landing out in the back, which you can sometimes get with the Boston 12. It's also $20 cheaper, which is a good thing, but downsides is you're not going to get as much rubber coverage, although the performance of this rubber in the rain was pretty good. So if you found the Boston 12 a little bit firm, you might like the Hoka Mach 6. And I have to say, I've done speed workouts recently in the Mach 6 where the performance reminded me a lot of the Boston 12. So if you want a fast shoe that's a little bit lighter weight, and let's throw these on the scale really quickly, or just the Mach 6. I know it's lighter, but just let's see how much lighter. So yeah, this is coming in at 235. It's a little snug. So in the right size for me, it would probably be 240. So it's going to be about 30 grams or an ounce or two lighter than the Boston 12, which that's pretty significant on foot. Now, I've taken this up to 12 miles, and I think, yeah, taken up to 12 miles, and I did a 22-mile double day in it. I actually took it up to 14 miles, and it performed really well. It's not going to be as good for the later stages of those long runs and for putting up high mileage as the Boston 12. But if you're looking to go up to 90 minutes max, Mach 6 is a great shoe. And especially if you are a forefoot to midfoot landing runner, you're going to get a lot of miles out of it. The ride is great for heel strikers, but it's just, you're going to get a lot of wear on that foam like I put on it. So this would be a good alternative to the Boston 12, especially if you don't want to go fully plated or you don't want to spend more than $150 on an everyday running shoe. Then the last other benefit of this guy is because it's more of a normal sneaker, if you are the type of person who wants to wear your shoes around town, get swagged up, not just wear this performance looking shoe for running, Mach 6 is of course a great option to be that versatile errand shoe, gym shoe, whatever you might need. Now, Boston 12 versus the Superblast here. Superblast is a lot more expensive, $40 more expensive, and it basically never goes on sale. Even with the Superblast 2 coming out this year, I don't know if we'll see the Superblast get a ton of discounts because the way Asics manages their inventory, they don't have a lot of these on the market. I actually had to get this in half a size bigger than my normal size just so I could try a pair of it. So really hard to find sometimes, and Asics doesn't do a lot of sales. But the difference between these two, the ride experiences, I get a little bit more natural bounce, more pop from the Boston 12. It feels a little bit more like I'm in control of the shoe. So the benefit and the awesome part of the Superblast is the same thing that makes it an annoying shoe sometimes, which is that it can feel that you are so disconnected from the ride experience that the shoe is just in control, in charge, and you are in the back seat. So if you like the feeling of being completely removed from the ground, you don't want any ground feel, you don't want to feel like you are putting some force into the shoe to run, then the Superblast is a good choice. Boston 12 here, you really are in charge. And if you see at the forefoot here, there's a pretty aggressive toe spring and it tapers off a lot so that right underneath your toes, you don't have that much foam. You get a lot of foam under the ball of your foot. Whereas if you look at the Superblast here, you get a lot of foam all the way up through the very tip of the forefoot. So that creates this super cushion experience. Combined with the width of this guy, it's like driving a boat, like a cruise ship. It is floaty. It's like running on a stack of frozen butter. And now with the stack on this, I should have mentioned stack of the Mach 6 here. You're getting 37 millimeters in the heel and 32 in the forefoot, which is really similar to the Boston here. It's about 36, 37 in the heel. And I believe there's a 7 millimeter drop. So Asics Superblast, on the other hand, you get 45 millimeters in the heel and about 37, 38 in the forefoot, which is just absolutely wild. So ton of foam underfoot. If you want something that's a lot more protective, that's going to be the Superblast. And the key thing that you're going to get out of the Superblast that you don't get out of the Boston 12, and you also get this out of the Mach 6 that you don't get out of the Boston 12, this was not a shoe that I enjoyed for recovery running or relaxed running at all, really, until this morning. And whether that's because I was on the treadmill or because there's 300 miles, maybe a little bit of a combination, both of those things have created a softer experience running in the shoe, the treadmill and the mileage, which is worn in the foam a little bit. But this guy here, this has almost become my favorite recovery shoe right now. I haven't gotten miles recently in, you can see right there, the 1080 V13. I think that's probably my favorite soft recovery running shoe. And that's not necessarily what the Superblast here is designed to do, but that's how I've enjoyed it the most recently. I haven't loved it for marathon pace running. I would take the Boston 12 over the Superblast personally for my marathon pace with my mechanics at around 6:15 to 6:45. This works a lot better, but the Superblast has been that if I want to just cruise with the stroller or if I'm feeling beat up and I want to feel like I'm doing some miles on the elliptical versus running, that's where I'll take the Superblast. It's almost like the training version of the Hoka Cielo X1 here. So expensive, but very protective, smooth, and once you break in the foam, it softens up. So that's something else these two shoes have in common. They both require a decent amount of mileage. So this was probably about 60 miles before it broke in for me. And this guy was probably about 30 to 40 miles. So if you want something a little bit better for relaxed running, probably a little bit more versatile, I would take the Superblast over the Boston 12. Superblast leans a little bit more relaxed or has more of that relaxed capability, whereas the Boston 12 definitely leans fast. This is not a recovery running shoe. I would not use this shoe for that, especially if you just look at the uppers here. The Superblast upper has some padding, Boston 12 upper is really performance, almost race day fit. This is a lot more minimal than even some race day shoes. Hoka Mach 6, this has a regular daily trainer upper here as well, similar to the Superblast. So out of these three guys here, Boston 12, gonna be the best for fast running. My favorite for long runs with any sort of race pace. Superblast is going to be the best for pure time on feet. Can go fast, can go slow, but it's going to make it super easy to run, take all that burden off your legs. That's the Superblast. And then with the Mach 6 here, this is going to be the guy, leans a little bit more to the short and fast side, but decent amount of cushion. I'd prefer this for up to 90 minutes max. And like the Boston 12, really good option for faster running. All right, guys, so to close it out here, focusing just on the Boston 12 now, let's get these other shoes out of the way. This was never meant to be, for me at least, a super versatile shoe, and I never loved it for recovery running, but everything other than super relaxed days, this was an awesome shoe for me. And through 300 miles, it's done speed workouts. It has some of my fastest miles in it. It has some of my best long runs in it. And any type of workout that you have on your marathon training calendar, this guy can do. And I promise you, you got to put 50 to 60 miles on it. But I promise you, once you do that, 50 miles, maybe 30 miles is actually where it broke in for me. So if you don't want to deal with putting that much mileage on it, maybe this isn't the shoe for you. But if you can accumulate that in the shoe within 2 weeks, then it's going to become an awesome shoe for you. And if you have a lot of 20-mile long runs with marathon pace and you don't want to use a plated racing shoe for that, like one of those guys, that's where the Boston 12 is going to be key. So still the GOAT, yes. I really think we have a strong contender right there in the Cloudmonster Hyper, but we got to get some more miles in that. So I appreciate you watching. Boston 12 still on top. I'll be back tomorrow with another video.